Am I sharing now or no?
Not yet.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jamie Schenker-Passero. I'm the Associate Director of the Temple Small Business Development Center. Our office helps small businesses start and grow. We're doing this virtually through consulting over the phone or over Zoom and with virtual webinars like this one. You have joined us for Reimagining Events, Innovating Through a Crisis. This is a webinar series intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses as they navigate these unprecedented times as a result of COVID-19 by exploring topics related to operations, health and safety, marketing, risk management, contingency planning, and innovation. We hope to provide meaningful and relevant insight in relation to current small business issues to help you understand and respond to the changing landscape. This series is brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, a joint initiative of Temple University's School of Sports, Tourism, and Hospitality Management and Temple Small Business Development Center. Today, the presentation will be led by Christine Cleaver. We have all attendees muted. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the chat box. And if appropriate, I will let Christine know there's a question, or we may wait to the end to address that. Thank you so much, Christine, for presenting with us today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm Christine Cleaver. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management. And I actually oversee the event management curriculum for undergraduate students. So I come from 25 years of industry experience, and it's been great because I have been able to parlay that now into teaching at Temple. So I'm going to take you through some things today that happened in the spring semester with the students. And I think it was a very interesting learning experience for them, and that's why I want to share it with you, and then also share some of the other things that are coming up. And I apologize. I have two very high maintenance dogs that are very used to their mom being home. So we're going to have to go through separation school in the next coming weeks as I head back to campus. So I apologize if they're being a little misbehaved right now.
We understand.
So the objectives today is I'm going to take you through a case study, and then I'm going to go through some event types and examples, and then some tricks and tips on how to reimagine things, because it's not something that you can do quickly. You really have to think about how you're doing things for the integrity of the event, but also for the expectations of the attendees. So first thing I'm going to take you through is Connect and Converse. So Connect and Converse, so our undergraduate curriculum is pretty cool. It's a laddered type thing where we have a foundational class, and then we have event revenues and event operations. And then the very last class is an experience class where the students actually produce an event. And going into spring semester, I had 25 very eager students in the class, and we were producing Connect and Converse, which is a networking event. And basically what happens is our Center for Professional Development gives us goals, and then the students actually imagine this event, and they put it together, they produce it, everything. So they did a really, really good job with it, and it was a great learning experience. So I wanted to go through the goals, you know, just so you kind of understand where the event was and where it actually ended up. So they give us goals, and you know, it was to plan a networking event for students that included alumni, networking with industry folks, and mock interviews. They want to make sure the students explore both the tourism and hospitality as well as the sport industries. They want to engage the students using an event app, the purposeful linking of students and industry professionals. They wanted 250 undergraduate and graduates, and then producing a sustainable event. So those were the goals, and these were the goals that we had the entire time we did this event. And the reason I'm kind of stressing that is I say all the time, if you don't have good goals, you haven't really built a really good foundation. And I have been in many, many conversations where the board president's wife feels like we should do a golf fundraiser or we should do a gala, but we're not set up to do that. So it's really good that you have the goals to lean back on because you can make a lot of decisions. So these goals were paramount for us because this is what we used as we were going through the whole process. So for the first, we have a 16-week semester. For the first 8 weeks of the semester, we worked to brainstorm, come up with the plan of action, the tracks that were going to happen using the app, how to register, how to market. And the day after we came back from spring break, we were supposed to launch this out to the students so they could begin registering, which would have been week 9. And this event was happening in week 13. So they're going to launch it out, be all ready to go. Well, when we came back from spring break is when we realized that most likely we were not going to be on campus for the rest of the semester. And I'm a big proponent. I have been in the event industry since the age of 12. I'm 46, so I've been doing this a really long time. I'm one of those don't cancel people. So I brought them in the classroom and I said, look, this is the scenario. This is what potentially can happen, is that we won't be on campus. But I want to challenge you all to figure out how we can take this event and not cancel it. What can we do? We have tools. We have different, we have an app that we're working with. We have the ability to use Zoom. How are we going to take this from in person to online? And we did a whole nother brainstorming, which was pretty interesting to see kind of how it went and what we were doing and what was going on. So initially there was supposed to be 3 tracks, and the students followed one of the tracks, where the first track was an alumni panel where we had alumni come in and talk about what they're doing and how they got there. The second area of that was networking. So we were going to do these things where it's called table talks, where we were going to have industry folks come and actually be sitting at tables and students could pose questions to them. During this too, they could also network with alumni as well as our student professional organizations. And then the third area of that, we're going to be mock interviews. The students really they always say that's their hardest thing, is to do a mock interview, or doing interviews. So we were doing mock interviews. So if you were in track A, you were following alumni panel, networking, mock interviews, and B, you were doing mock interviews, networking, or mock interviews, alumni panel, networking, and C, the other ones. So all planned out, down to timing of a 6-minute in between each thing, and being able to turn over, and where, sound bleed was going to happen. The whole event design was done. The whole budget was put together, everything. And within an hour and 20 minutes, I had to challenge the students to think about how to take this in-person event to an online event. And they did an amazing job with this. Still happening on the same day, still happening at the same time. We couldn't change that because what happens every semester with this is I preload to all of the professors and the faculty and the staff when this event's going to happen, and they actually block that time out of their classroom. So it was going to be really hard to pivot on top of us pivoting going online. So the students really thought about everything. And what I did was we came into a room, and what I had up on the screen was the goals. I said, look, we need to look at the goals. How are we going to produce this with the goals that were given to us? These are the goals. These goals aren't going to change. And how are we going to do this? So we thought about the tracks, and at that time we weren't really sure how we were going to do mock interviewing via Zoom, because this was all still really new. And I'll be honest, in the Philadelphia area, this was one of the first events that went virtual. So it was definitely, and I was very proud of them. We actually did an interview with the Inquirer over it as well, just because it was a really interesting kind of dynamic to go online, and especially with
That's
a
a very
group
cool
of students.
accomplishment, Christine. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it was pretty neat, and it was definitely a lot learned. It was kind of crazy, and I definitely had a ton of sleepless nights, but I knew in my heart that they were so passionate about this that they were going to be able to get this to where it needed to be. And with that, you know, we discussed different things. We discussed different ways and what we were going to do. So instead of 3 tracks, they came up with 3 kind of 3 programming elements instead. All hit the goal of the event, but we just had to tweak things a little bit. So it was very relevant that we took our alumni and we said, hey, can we work with you and have this be a COVID conversation? How are you pivoting? What's happening? Because, and as we all know, and the reason these webinars are happening is our industry was hit the hardest with everything. So we had a person from the sport industry, recreation, events, tourism, and hospitality. So we had 5 individuals, and we had very open conversation about COVID and what was happening and what was going on and how their companies were handling things. And the students asked a ton of questions, and it was great. And this was the kickoff to it. It was wonderful. Then what we did for the second session was we did kind of an HR session in so that we could prep everybody for mock interviews. So instead of actually holding them, we did preparation. So you could go, and we did 4 sessions, each for 30 minutes, so that you could go to 2 of them. And then we actually, after the event, sent links out to everybody for everything so they could watch everything. And they did, because we were able to go in and see, and the students were monitoring this because we were also talking about return on investment and all those things. So we talked about how to prepare yourself for an online interview, you know, what not to have in your background, you know, how you should handle yourself, how your camera should look. And that was a very relevant thing because we were a few weeks into this and students were, you know, sitting on their beds, you know, with the camera like looking up their nose. So it was really good to talk about those things. Asking the right questions for the job you want was another one that they did. Then also too, how to use LinkedIn for networking. And oh, the 4th one was updating your resume for the current situation that was happening. So it was really good. And they were all 30 minutes and then able to ask questions from there. And then for the 3rd programming element, we did an alumni panel of alums from probably 20 years ago when the school started up until about 5 years ago. And it was really good to see the different perspectives. It was also great to hear the students because several of the folks, including I'm one of them, I'm a graduate of the school, we have gone through 3 recoveries. So we were able to, you know, they were able to discuss with the students that, hey, this is going to come back. So it was really, for the students, it was really, really, really helpful and worked really well. Now, with this, you know, we had to reimagine a lot of things. You know, we had to look at the design of things. We had to look at, you know, we went from now having things in person and, you know, okay, now we're not going to have food. We still have a gift for the attendee or the gift for the presenters that we had to get to. How are we going to do that? You know, we had an individual in our class that actually works for Kellogg's, and she was able to provide, which was pretty cool to the students and something different, a coupon code that they were able to go on Amazon and get free cereal. So they really looked at things from all sorts of different perspectives and really added to the event. Well, then as we started going and it was building momentum, what then they came to me and said was, Professor Cleaver, you know, we have a lot of other alums that are reaching out to us that either want to be involved or had been recently furloughed or laid off. Can we open this up to all alumni in industry? And I said, sure, why not? We have the ability to do this. We're using the WOVA app. So our goal for this was 250 students, and we ended up with 1,200 people attending this event, which was amazing. And it was definitely some more alumni, some industry, some other students. So it really had a very nice momentum to it, and you know, really worked out very well. But it was definitely it was a lot of thinking and a lot of reimagining, you know, what was going on and what was happening, but not impossible. So my advice on that is, don't do this alone. So, you know, build a network. And even if that means, you know, reaching out, if you ever want to, you know, my students are always up to speak. And if you ever, or you're doing something and you want some other opinions, there's 25 students in this class. And that's what made it the best, was having having things from multiple perspectives and being able to really look at things and, oh, you know what, that may not work, or you know what, we made mistakes. We scheduled everything back to back to back, and you can't do that. We needed breaks in the middle, and that was something. We also thought, oh, everybody's going to be able to use a Zoom background. That doesn't happen as well. So there were definitely things that we learned in our debrief and our postcon. Those are all the things that we wrote down and took note. And I'm teaching this class again. I was actually, before this webinar, actually prepping for the semester. So these are all notes. And with this class, I do a pre-con with them where we walk through everything. We do a rehearsal. We did a rehearsal, which was wonderful and great. And we actually recorded the rehearsal in case anything went, awry that day. We learned that there's definitely some Zoom features that you can't start two sessions at the same time. So there was a lot of learning with it as well, which was really helpful going forward and doing things. So this right here is probably kind of the this brings the biggest smile to my face, because I'm an old school planner. I've done outdoor festivals, I did outdoor events, I've done conferences, conventions, and the load in of this and the event setup of this event, it was so different than anything I ever had. And friends joke with me that that big cup of coffee probably was not the best around all those computers, but I had a computer going for each session that was happening. The iPad I had, so that if we had to reference anything, I was able to. The students were using Slack to communicate with each other, because they were all over the country at this point. And I actually had two students that were actually in Japan that were actually producing as well. And then behind me, I actually had an iPad set up so that I could record it all, just because it was pretty neat to see kind of how it worked and the different things that happened. And you can even see notes that I'm taking. And so this is kind of, the different area of it, but it was something that I will never forget. It's something I'm looking forward to doing again, but it was definitely something that I had not done in all of my years of production. I never had to do an actual full virtual event. So definitely, a very interesting scenario, and one that I kind of wanted to take you through, just because there was a process to it. It was definitely, making sure that we were hitting all the goals. The best part, I'll be honest, there were three amazing parts to this. Four. The students rocked. They were amazing. It was a great learning experience for them and myself. Two, we cut our budget to 1/3, which was amazing, of what this was going to cost, because we didn't have venue fees, and we didn't have, and again, that was a whole learning thing for the students, going back to the venue in which we had signed a contract with, and saying, we're not holding this now. And, that was a really good thing. The venue was wonderful. And they actually, some of the venue managers actually came to the event online, which is pretty cool. We didn't actually have the food. We were able to go down, we didn't have to do on-site posters, because we were doing everything virtual. So definitely, was really a cool thing. We exceeded our goal of number of people. So we said 250 and we got to 1,200, which was amazing. And then the last thing was, the goal was sustainability. So we teach sustainability. That's a big pillar in our event program. And you really could not have had more of a sustainable event if you tried, just because everything was done digital. We sent links out afterwards. There was no program. There was no food waste. So it definitely, it hit the sustainability goal quite well. So it was a pretty interesting kind of scenario, and something that I thought would be interesting to see kind of the process of what we did. So I was going to pivot now a little bit and talk about different types of events and how people are doing different things and what they're doing and how they're reimagining things. Two of them, one, and hopefully this is going to pop up, sorry, is the 4th of July Festival in Philadelphia. They went 100% virtual and 100% free. And again, they went with what their goals are. Their goals have always been to provide, educational and historic programming around the 4th of July. And instead of canceling, they went and pivoted to a different environment. And they did a really nice job with it. Every day there was different things that happened. Every day on their social media, they would send out, this is what's happening. This is how you can celebrate with us. So they did a really, really good job with it, but it was not an easy task. And the actual 4th of July concert, they actually filmed in advance at the Met. They had to follow, a ton of safety procedures and make sure that they were, social distancing, but they were able to do it and actually package it together and not actually cancel and still be able to, meet their goal of showing everybody a good time. Then the other one, this is, I actually live in the Allentown area. So this actually just happened over the last 2 weeks, and this was Virtual Music Fest. And this is a big, huge music and food festival that happens in the Lehigh Valley. And again, they went virtual as well. Now this was pretty cool because they went and they took things a little different. So they did virtual where you could watch everything every day online, again, send it out to social media. But then they also had to-go food that you could actually go to Steel Stacks with some of, I think it was about 10 to 12 of their main food vendors were there, and you could order food to go and actually go eat in your car or take it with you. So they still had their food element to the festival, which is a big, huge thing of theirs. So it was a really cool way to be able to still have things and be able to still fest is what they were saying. And then they also had some cool merchandise that, Music Fest 2020, the one we were quarantined. So, they did a really nice job with it. And Music Fest is a nonprofit, so they were still able to fundraise and do all the different things, and people donated instead of buying tickets. So it was definitely over the time frame. It was fun to watch. You could go on, and I know what I did with this is, I had it up on my TV on my back deck, and we would watch, some of the artists at night. So it was definitely a good way to still keep in touch. And again, going back to the still having stuff and not canceling. Next thing is, social distance events. So there's still events that are happening, and that's an exciting thing. And again, it's reimagining. So I was telling Jamie before we got on this call or on the webinar, I have a freshman and that's about to start Temple. And so we had a very interesting spring with no graduation, no prom, all of those things being virtual. And her friends actually, I want to say 4 weeks ago, actually held a prom. They found a barn that was outside, doors open. They only had 20 people. They wore masks, but they were able to at least celebrate. Well, this was one that happened in the Poconos at Pocono Raceway. Several high schools actually held their graduations at the raceway. And I know this is how my daughter actually received her diploma, is they did an actual parade where they went through the main circle of her high school, and she was handed her diploma by the principal, who was wearing a mask, and they took a picture. So she was still able to be awarded the diploma, which was really nice. So, this was a very interesting way to do stuff. So, they had, your car, and I'll be honest, I thought this was really cool, and I hope to continue this tradition. The families were actually able to ride around the racetrack, and then they parked and they were able to get their diplomas, but everybody had a really safe distance from each other. So there are still ways to do this if you can find venues that are big enough. And, I know a lot, I think 4 high schools did this scenario, and other high schools were doing virtual graduations where they were setting up a tent and a stage, and it was one student across at a time. And, I know my daughter had a vocal concert a few weeks ago, and it was outside in a pavilion where they had families, and it was really cool. They used pool noodles. So if you were unsure of what 6 feet is, get a pool noodle. A pool noodle keeps everybody aligned, and they had pool noodles, and you sat, and it was really nice. It was very nicely done, and there's still ways to do it. So I think the challenge for all of us is how to think about that and how to think out of the box. And in the event industry, we're all very creative people. So we just have to figure out how to up our game on the creativity in order to keep these things going. Another social distance events that I'm seeing a lot of are weddings that are either drive-up weddings or happening in a drive-in. So where the actual, again, with a lot of this is just different ways of how you're using your budget. So with this, instead of, you having the venue and the seating, you're now bringing out a vendor that's actually going to film you and put it on your in the screen that people can come out. I have 3 friends that their children have been married this summer in this kind of scenario. So, it's just a little bit of different thinking. So, hang on, I think I saw some questions. Oh, here
Yeah,
we go.
Christine, there's a question specifically related to street festivals, and ways to reimagine them, and the issue with demand for virtual festivals where, people just like that energy of a live event.
I
So pivoting with that major challenge.
I 100% agree on the energy. That is, I think, the part that's hurting the most. I think for all of us it is kind of not being able to be there and have the energy around you. I I I'll be honest with this. I think there's many ways to do it. I think you could have a limited capacity. With that, you could almost do hybrid, where you have a limited capacity that people could be there, and you're also streaming it at the same time. Unfortunately, for the near future, I want to say probably till spring of 2021, we're going to be in that scenario. So you have to figure out how to create that that sense that you want to be involved. And I know, things like the t-shirts, or things like contesting, or things like, different bands being there. And I know Garth Brooks did a whole thing of one night where you could go to an actual, again, a drive-in, and performed in Philadelphia. They're at Citizens Bank Park. They're doing drive-up concerts in a few weeks. So I think it's just different ways to think about things. I think the drive-up mode is going to be a good one for a while, because people are contained in their own vehicle, and they're still kind of getting, I think they can either do their own vehicle or they can be around the vehicle, and they're still kind of getting that excitement era. So I think that's, the way to go. Now, we all know that we still have to figure out how to pay the bills. So with limited capacity, we need to then look at the hybrid, because there needs to be supplement to that. Now with the hybrid, you can still do sponsors, you can still do all those things. So I think it's just kind of creating that mix and meld of what works and what doesn't. I hope that helped a little bit with the question. I can go in a little bit further too at the end. So this is something that I think is innovative, and I think it could also, with the street festival, be a way to kind of help with that demand. So this time of year, there's a ton of car shows where people are going and looking at the cars, and people are home, and they want things to do. So taking the car show, or taking the event to the people, where you're almost doing a parade around a neighborhood, or you're doing you're doing a parade around neighborhood, or you're doing a parade around a festival ground or something, still practices social distance, still has the integrity of what you're trying to do, and you can then still have your partners and all these different things. This one photo is an antique car show that they did exactly that. So instead of people coming, people knew what the route was, and you can actually sit out on the route with your chair, like your bag chair, and social distanced apart, and be able to still kind of have the show. So I think there's all different ways to look at this. And the other one, so one was a classic car show and one was a high-end car show, of instead of, because I know we have coffee and cars here at a couple of different venues. Well, now you could almost, hey, grab your coffee and we'll go on a ride. I'm a Jeep owner, so we've been doing a lot of Jeep parades where we'll go to like a hospital or a care facility and actually do the parades. There's been some Jeep parades for graduations. So there's all sorts of different ways to look at this and do this, so that you're able to oh, sorry, that you're able to, you know, kind of think about things and kind of still reach your goals. So when you're rethinking things, so I'm going to go through this next section, and then I'll answer some of the questions. So when you're doing this, the big thing that's paramount is your goals. Now, your goals may change, but I know they're not going to change so much that you're going to completely blow the event completely out of the water. So make sure, again, you're going back to your goals. When we had to pivot to the online, we looked at our goals. What are our goals? What's your return on investment? You know, what are you trying to do? Is it a fundraiser? Is it you're educating people? What are you trying to do and what are you trying to achieve? So make sure you're going back to your goals. It's super important that you are that you're using your foundation, which are your goals, when you're rethinking your event. Because you know, while I don't want things to be canceled, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. There's just sometimes not a way to produce things that makes the most sense. Or keeps the complete total integrity of things. So you need to make sure that if it's not meeting your goals, then you need to have that hard decision of, does this make sense or not? Resources. So many times what people get caught up in is we don't have the resources, but with this, a lot of times now you're going to be reallocating resources. Like I had said in the example, you know, with the outdoor wedding, you know, you're just now reallocating your resources to other things. And right now people are being pretty forgiving with contracts and different things because they know what's happening and what's going on. So that is a great thing that we're all kind of working together on that. But many times you're going to just be reallocating your resources to other things. You're also going to have to learn some additional resources and kind of push yourself outside your comfort zone. I have virtual events. I am now a certified virtual event planner. I'm also certified in multiple apps. That's something that I did over the summer. To actually give that knowledge to my students, but then also so that I'm doing things to the best practices possible. So design, this is something that you have to think about. You can't just like throw an event out there, especially if you're going online. You have to think about the design of the event and how it looks. And I put these two slides in here because this was an ultimate learning moment for my students. You know, they were designing these Zoom backgrounds and I was like, this is great, this is terrific. Well, as you can see by the top one, I'm completely blocking the name of the event and it just doesn't look professional, where the bottom one, you know, it looks more professional. So the top one, when we did our walkthrough, you know, I let them kind of figure it out. We went through and everyone was like so excited. And I had one student say, Professor Kleber, I don't think the background works. And I was like, I agree with you on that. So then they took the initiative and they came up with a new background. So, and you know, this is something right now you can Google, you know, how to create a Zoom background and it comes up. But you need to think about the lighting of things and how things are being produced and what's happening, and you know, how many folks can you have? And again, the design, going back to the pool noodles and the 6 feet apart, and how are you doing all of that? And I always use this example in my classroom is when you're designing things, making sure you're closing your eyes and you're walking through things, and how are you painting the picture? What's happening? What's going on? You know, so that you're actually taking yourself through the event, and does this work? Does this not work? You know, so it's definitely, you're going to push yourself out of your comfort zone, which is something that we all have to do every so often to make ourselves better. So this is something you just have to think about. What is the design? If it's hybrid, how does that work? And is it easy to use? And, you know, the easier it can be, the better off you are. And then communication. This is huge. You need to be communicating to not only the folks that you're working with, but also the clientele that's coming to the event, the expectations. The event is not going to be the same that it always once was. And people are still getting used to that. They're still getting used to where they're supposed to stand in their grocery store. They're still getting used to wearing the mask. You need to communicate that out. This is what is going to happen this year. This is the protocol that we're following. These are the reasons why. And you're setting, you're managing, you're setting and you're managing their expectations so that they're having a good experience. If you're not doing that, then they're going to be like, well, it wasn't like it was in the past. Well, of course it isn't, because it's not going to be the same event. So you want to make sure that if you're communicating, especially if, you know, if you're, you know, say that you're really trying to manage the flow of things and you have 4 different entrances to your venue, you know, if your ticket is marked 32 to 39, you're entering in this, you're going into entrance A, 40 to 41 is B. Need to make sure that you're communicating that out so people understand and know those. And then your folks that are on site helping you want to make sure that they're being as polite as possible, and also further, you know, letting people know what's happening and what's going on. So that's kind of my overview. I figured now I could answer some questions, or, you know, with different things and kind of go from there. It seems like we do have some, which is awesome. And so I'll start, if no one objects, I'll start to answer some of the questions. Jamie, is that okay?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Do you want me to read them to you, or do you want to go ahead?
No, I'm good. I can see them.
Okay.
So, what are the best options for sales meetings where you have to show the customer the product and demonstrate it like a bicycle? So this is a very interesting thing. And I recommend that you do kind of a 101 for sales meetings of how to do things. You can go on Amazon and get a tripod, and it's actually kind of crazy. It's one of those that you can hook onto things, and you can use your smartphone, crazy easy to use, and you can film, you know, film someone on it so that they understand, you know, how to, like, and I'm going to use the bike example, what the features of the bike are, how to ride the bike, all of those things, so that you're now doing it in advance via video. But you need to make it organic. You can't have this like crazy overproduced so it does not feel like the person is part of the experience. You want them to be part of the experience. It's almost like you want to put it on the bike and ride the bike with it, and, you know, all those products. You want to make it, and there should be some blooper to it, because, you know, not every sales pitch goes 100% correct. So you want it to feel organic, and then you can actually, you know, there's different apps, there's different platforms, you know, you can run those videos in there. Or, hey, you know, think about the product, think about what you're trying to launch in the sales meeting. You know, if you're trying to do an incentive program, you know, oh, you know, if you sell this many things, you'll get a trip to Bora Bora. Well, you know, having someone, you know, with their suitcase all ready to go to Bora Bora, make it kind of fun and innovating. Again, it's, you know, just reallocating your resources from where they'd be on site to now doing things in advance. And if you're doing something like this where you're going to have multiple people involved, you know, making sure that you're scripting it out kind of like a storyboard, or you're discussing who's going to do what, or doing a 101, and you know, picking the best kind of product at the end is a good way to go with it. If I had an event where I had a bunch of different artists and send me videos, not sure how to stream. So you definitely can do this. You can actually almost set this up as oh, the word's not coming to me right now, a playlist, where you have them in a row where you're actually playing them, and then you can stream via your platform. So you can use something like an iTunes, or you can use something like a YouTube where you're actually making a playlist. What's cool about this is you can use that playlist to actually stream, and you could do that, you know, via like a Zoom that we're doing today, because you can run it off the computer. The other thing is too, then you can actually serve that playlist to people after the fact. So, hey, remember the great day we had at Music 101? Well, here, relive it in the future, and you're actually able to give them the playlist. And what's cool is then you can see how many people are watching and viewing, and that helps you too with your return on investment, and you know, saying to your sponsors, hey, you know, this many people viewed the videos. What do you do when your sponsors are unenthused by your proposal? Any concern about sponsors being tight with funds now that they weathered the storm? Yeah, this is a huge one. So the beauty and the not beauty with this is the beauty is um, if they're tight with funds, your events are actually costing a little less to produce right now. So that actually is parallel to each other. You really have to dig deep with this and find out what's the core value of the sponsor, what the core value of the sponsor is, what are they working on? What are other things that they're doing? What are things that they're supporting? Are there programs that you can tie into? Like someone like a Wawa that is a huge supporter of the military, is there a military program that you can actually then put, put within your program? You might, with this, you're gonna have to really kind of think a little bit outside the box on this one, just to tie them in a little bit more. Can you do videos that you run in, is there, can you actually have their employees talk about what makes the company special, and you're doing like a montage? So it's going to have to be a little bit different than, normal logo placement, logo on your website, logo on the program, logo on site. You're going to have to dig a little bit deeper in order to get them a little bit more engaged. Any other questions?
So if we can gather more questions in the chat, I am going to post a link to a 4-question survey that we would like all attendees to complete. We'd really appreciate it. It helps us continue offering free webinars to you, and we'll include it in the follow-up as well. I'm also going to post a link to our resource page that our office is updating almost daily with COVID-19 related resources, funding sources, links to future webinars, and links to past webinar recordings. So you can find that here. And I did see a question that came in. What platforms would you recommend or maybe not recommend? Did you mean for virtual hosting, I'm assuming? What do you think, Christine?
I can recommend a couple things. Virtual hosts. Okay.
Yeah, virtual.
Yeah. So it all depends on what type of event you are doing. And I say this too when it comes to even the sound vendors that I use. I have sound vendors that I use outside, and I have sound vendors that I use inside. So it all depends on what you're doing. For more corporate stuff, the Zoom platform seems to be working really well for corporate things. I also also use the Whova app, and they've done a really nice job over the past 6 months adding in a ton of integration where they have they have breakout rooms now. They have, the Zoom actually integrates with the app, which is great. So it works out really well. If you're doing like a outdoor festival and stuff, I recommend that you're streaming off of your website, kind of like a video, like a YouTube type thing, where you're embedding it directly in your website, just because you're probably going to have a ton more people. So you're going to need a little bit more bandwidth. Zoom is great, but Zoom can be limited depending on what platform you have as to how many people you are actually working with. So the two things, and I've seen that someone didn't catch the first platform. So it's Zoom and Whova. Whova is an event app that we use. And a lot of the event apps, though, are coming really far very quickly. This is just the one that I use in the classroom with the students. We get them trained on social tables and Cvent and an app. So we've worked really well with Whova, and they've been amazing. And that's the thing, make sure, you're doing your homework and you're checking different things out, and there's a ton of different platforms out there now, that it might,
Is there a cost to Whova?
There is a cost to Whova, yes, but Whova is the most economical of all the event apps. My big thing with any of this stuff that you are doing is make sure not only are you sitting through a demo, but ask them for recommendations of people that are using the product. Very, very, very important, because as we all know, they can put a slick demo together, but make sure that you're finding people that are using the product. And Who was pretty good with that. They actually have a recommendation page. I did that when I first started working with them.
There's a question about paying, maybe more clarification for the person who asked this. There's a question about paying 50% salaries to our employees or go for full downsizing.
Downsizing.
Yeah, maybe.
Can you give me a little bit more scenario on that I can answer?
And in the meantime, I'm seeing a question, can you suggest some online events we can see? So I guess examples that that businesses can look to, maybe upcoming events that you think that are good examples. That's a great question.
Yes, actually, what I will do in the resource page that will be sent out to you later, I can definitely do that. I have some in there, but I can definitely add some more.
Great.
Making a note right now.
Okay.
Yep, I definitely can do that.
So I think that gets to all of the questions, at least the ones that we kind of were able to get a handle on what the intention was. So I think maybe we can wrap up for today. And we do thank all of you for joining us. Thank you so much to Christine for your expertise in this area. I can say personally, it has been a challenge in my role. I host all of our events, and I miss those in-person events so much. I miss the energy, and we've been adapting by, I think, recognizing that now. At least one benefit is recognizing that we can reach a little bit of a wider audience now with our training events, because transportation and parking is not an issue. So that is the one ray of sunshine that we're getting. But yeah, I really miss the energy of having business owners in a room, connecting, networking. We're trying to be more interactive with our virtual events where possible, breakout rooms where possible, polling while possible, because that community, when you are a small business owner, is important. And there is an element that's being lost right now that is just a reality, but we have to keep moving forward. We all have goals. We have to keep putting out educational content for business owners because it's still needed. So I think we all have to remember our goals and just do our best and not be hard on ourselves.
I agree. We have to give ourselves grace right now. Believe me,
I know that other people are as well. Other people are giving us that, giving us a little bit of a break too. So thank you all. Thanks for the comments in the chats. I think we will wrap up for today. Oh, thank you guys in the chat. Appreciate that. We will send out materials afterwards to everyone who attended. And we will include the survey again. If you didn't get a chance to do it, we really do need that feedback from you, and we hope to see you at our next events. We have